there's so much opportunity right now because everyone's feeling so much pain who has an insurance policy, which is most people. So my thing is make more calls, reach out to more people.
It's definitely a grind, but it's something I enjoy. Like that's what fills my cup, is being out there and doing that stuff.
Scratch versus acquisition. What should we do? Today, Courtney and I sit down with Sean Fitzgerald and Stephen Turnbull of the Scratch Agency podcast, also both independent insurance agency owners who started from scratch. We get to hear why they started from scratch versus acquisition, what their plans are, how they're currently navigating the market. We're going to be talking about personalized and commercial in this episode. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have two very special guests with us today, Stephen Turnbull and Sean Fitzgerald of the Scratch Agency podcast. What's going on, guys?
Dude, great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
These are also fellow podcasters, so it's like a pod trifecta that's happening here today.
Love it. I love when we just sit back as the guests, right? No pressure on this end, just answer the questions.
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's dive into it.
Scratch Agency. Here we go.
Scratch Agency. You both run independent, separate Scratch insurance agencies. That's how you started. I have to ask, why Scratch versus not just going in, buying a book of business and revamping that book of business so you could have guaranteed income from the very beginning?
Sean, you can go first.
No problem. Yeah, so for me, I'm just going to be brutally honest. I have no knowledge in acquiring agencies, so definitely not my specialty. But I do have knowledge in generating new business and lead generation. So I knew when I opened a Scratch agency, I had some relationships with carriers from my prior agency. So I knew I'd be able to get at least a couple of appointments to keep me afloat, and then I can generate the business from there. So not a crazy story, but that's why I went the lead generation route. I do, down the line, it's something I've been reading about and looking into and trying to learn more about and talking to other agency owners about acquiring. So in the future, definitely something I'm looking to do.
Sean, can I ask if you're open to sharing, when you went into this business, did you have a ton of capital that you could deploy right away, or financially were you okay?
No, not a ton of capital. It's a good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I maybe had like $15,000 saved. Not a huge chunk of change. But I did the basics. I basically got an AMS, my phone system, email. That was about it. I didn't have a ton of software. I kept it pretty lean in the beginning. I did start with AMS 360. You could say that's a bit of a hiccup because they are very expensive. It's something Steven and I joke about all the time. I signed my life away. But besides that, I kept it pretty lean in the beginning. Not so much now. Now I'm investing more into the business. But yeah, I kept it lean up front.
And you're 4 years in, is that right?
4 years in. Yeah, I started a few weeks before COVID in 2020.
And just for clarification, for somebody who doesn't use AMS 360, that's a CRM?
So that's an agency management system. It's basically your system where you're going to store all the client documents, policies, correspondence with the clients, things of that nature.
Okay. I love it.
All right, Stephen, you're up. Why
Let's
Scratch
go.
versus acquisition, baby?
Why Scratch? Well, we can get deeper into the story depending how many drinks we're at the bar in, but I'll keep it service level here. But most people who probably listen to the podcast or heard my story know I came from a family agency. So I was a fifth generation in a family agency, which is the T5 in my agency name, stands for my last name and fifth generation agent. And there's family business is very difficult. We'll leave it at surface level in that regard. My father and uncle were owners of the agency, and I decided to go off and do my own path. And similar to what Sean said, I had the carrier relationships, and those were things I kind of checked off before deciding if I was going to go scratch and start from zero, and make sure I had the base there, and had the carrier relationships, and had my own relationships from a sales standpoint. And so in May of 22, so I'm coming up at about 2.5 years, is when I decided to leave the family agency and start T5 from scratch. So from an acquisition standpoint, we've had some opportunities over the last 2 years, but really have not acquired anything yet. But have just been building it policy by policy at this point.
Yeah, and to
I'm going to ask
build,
you this.
build
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, to build off what Steven said is what I forgot to touch on too, is like, I feel like Steven and I are both we both do a great job at lead generation, but both of us do it completely different. So we did have a strategy and a business plan around how we're going to build the agency from scratch organically. So Steven's whole thing is community. That guy, he's always at an event. Anytime I message him, I'm at this lunch, I'm at this dinner, I'm at this weekend thing, I'm at this not-for-profit thing. He's always doing something in the community. Where mine was a little bit different with like purchasing leads and things of that nature. And that's where our style was different. But we did have a strategy on the organic growth side of things, just to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
You better have a strategy if you're going scratch, baby. As we're also fellow scratch agents, we had $5,000 to our name. Felt like had just got married, and yeah, my rule is always you have to have 5 new business acquisition strategies out there at all times. So I agree with you guys. Are you guys primarily focused on personal lines, commercial lines, or are you doing a mixture of both?
So I'm about 70% personal, and Sean's a little bit more heavy on commercial. I kind of built my business. I've been in the industry for about 8.5 years, been on my own for 2.5 years. In the first couple of years of the family agency, I was really primarily focused on personal lines, started to get more commercial opportunities. And then when I went on my own, it was like, all right, let's get those personal lines booked back, get that foundation started. So we're starting to grow more commercially, but definitely more personal focus. I know Sean's more commercial focused.
Okay, this is fantastic then. So what I would love to actually just talk about real fast, Steven, let's talk with you since you're personal lines focused, and Sean will focus with you on commercial lines. Steven, what are some lead generation strategies that have worked in the past and are still working today to drive leads to your business?
Yeah, Sean touched on it a little bit, but my lead generation strategies is just the community and referral based. I'm 100% referral based. I joke with everybody that I've never bought a lead, but that's actually a lie because Sean convinced me to try it, and I fell flat on my face about a year ago. So about $500 worth of leads, didn't close a single one. I'm like, Sean, you go rock and roll, baby. I'm going back to networking events. But it would be, my lead generation strategy when I first started. Not to dive too deep into the story, but I was working for my family's agency, so the last name was kind of prevalent in the community when it came to insurance. But I still had to redevelop who I was, right? And so when I went to T5, it was kind of a rebranding of that sense. So my strategy was to just involve myself in as much community things as possible, and then find what stuck and what I enjoyed. So, like president of Rotary Club, on the chamber board, involved in BNI, like the face-to-face networking, all of that stuff has really worked well for me and has resulted in a steady flow of inbound referrals from a lead standpoint.
So it would be safe to assume that you're of the mindset that you should never have lunch alone.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That. Sean, how about you? How are you?
I want to dive into their markets just for the listener who understands where these two guys are coming from. So Sean is in Long Island and Steven is in upstate New York. So same state, but very different markets. Just to give kind of a context of where these guys are generating their leads from, and their different approaches is geared towards the market that they're in. So yeah. I want to give kind of like some background on that before we jump into Sean and the internet lead strategy.
Well, and just commercial strategies, because we get asked all the time. I mean, there's so many carriers right now. It doesn't matter if it's in the independent space or captive space that are wanting more commercial business. So Sean, I would love for you to talk about how you've been successful in the commercial space since starting day one as a scratch insurance agency, and what lead gen tactics are working well for you.
Yeah, so nothing fancy, cold calling. And once I got to a point, I hired an appointment setter to do the cold calling for me. Once I had kind of like a track record of, hey, this is what I've done. This is a script I've used. These are the processes and procedures I do to make the cold call. This is how you set an appointment. This is how you put it on my calendar, so on and so on. So for me, it was just cold calling. I used a software called Insurance X Dates. And that was just in New York, it's a software. It gives you the X date, the renewal date of a specific business you're targeting. So let's say I want to go after electrical contractors in Suffolk and Nassau County on Long Island. And I want that list to only be a list of employees of, the company size of 10 employees or more. So I run that list. It gives me the phone number, the name of the owner, the date they're renewing. So this way, when I make a cold call, it's much more of a warm call than it is a cold call, because I'm saying, hey, Scott, it's Sean from Sound Harbor Insurance. How you doing today? And then I'm going into the, hey, I see you're coming up for renewal in 30 days with Travelers. Just wanted to reach out. I know the market's been crazy the last couple of years. Just wanted to see if you'd like a second opinion on your business policies. Just very upfront, very honest, very transparent. And a lot of the times, sometimes they get confused. Oh, you're my agent? Like, because I'm telling them their renewal date, So it's good. Like, I feel like that just helps make the call a little bit warmer, So that's how I did it. I just cold calling, and then I hired somebody to just do appointment setting. So I gave them that list and told them this is exactly how I do it. So cold calling was one. The other one was a service I purchased leads from. So that company was Lead Orchard that I used. And what's pretty cool with them is you can purchase however many leads you want. They're guaranteed leads. So you can do something like, hey, I want to get 5 leads a month, company size 10 employees or more in this specific niche. Kind of like with the Insurance X Dates things I was telling you about. And they're guaranteed leads. They are expensive. But if you close 1 out of the 4 leads, where I'm at near New York City, those can bring a lot of revenue depending on the classes you're going after. So those are my 2 biggest things. And like Steven said, referrals, asking for referrals. I tried Steven tried the lead thing. I tried the networking thing. For me, it was tough. I got 2 kids under 2, married, house. It was just a lot of, it was a lot to schedule in my day, So for me, it didn't work too well on the networking side of things, but that's why I like this opportunity a little bit better.
Just to touch on too, Courtney, to your question about the different markets, like we always joke, like when people hear New York, like they just think of New York City, right? And so I'm in upstate New York. We're like 4.5 hours north of Sean, and I'm like, there's a different world up here. We're up here, I promise you. But from the market standpoint, like we haven't, it's been tough, like it is everywhere, but nothing what Sean's experiencing from the standpoint of guidelines from underwriters or companies that aren't writing any business or whatever. Like I haven't really experienced much of that where Sean has, and so it's been different in that sense. And I know we'll get into a little bit, but that's been the coolest part about our relationship is like in the scratch journey, kind of having each other to bounce these things off of each other. And we can get into how we met and all that, but seeing how different it is coming from the family agency side of things. It was like the horse blinders came off for me because my family agency was over 150 years old. Those processes, procedures, the way things were done, this is the way we get business, all those things were set in stone. And then I kind of came out like to Sean's point, oh, you buy leads, and that's how, I didn't know that really, because it was the family agency was just kind of where I was at. So it's just incredible how even in the same state, 4 hours away, our markets are completely different the way we operate the agency too.
Yeah,
so
and
Sean,
I like the
I
way
wanna hear-
Steven... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like the way Steven does his lead generation. I think it could work great where I'm at. So I don't want it to come off sounding like, hey, just because I'm in this territory, this is why I'm doing it. I'm just being brutally honest. It was just a scheduling thing for me. So that's why I went the lead generation route, and I'm more familiar with it.
So as the market's gotten harder, Sean, has your approach changed at all from a lead standpoint? Like, has your verbiage changed, your hook, your elevator pitch? What has changed as the market changes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing that's just changed the most is like attitude within the agency, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people are, hey, we're in a hard market. Oh my, like I talked to other agents on Long Island, and their attitude is, we're in a hard market. Oh my God, I'm just fighting to save business. And honestly, the way I look at it is just, there's so much opportunity right now because everyone's feeling so much pain who has an insurance policy, which is most people. So my thing is make more calls, reach out to more people. So I feel, and it makes me feel more comfortable when I do the cold call because I know the person's experiencing pain. And like I told you with my pitch, I put that in there. Hey, I know the market has been, really high over the last, people are seeing rate increases over the last 2 years. And I'm not saying anything shady. I'm not making up a story. I'm just telling the truth of what's going on in our area. And I feel like that resonates with them. That makes me feel better about doing the call. And that gets our team on the same page because we're all fired up thinking there's lots of opportunity out there. And there is. So I feel like that's a big part of it.
I love that. I love that mindset. I love that attitude because where there are obstacles, there's always an opportunity. It just depends on which one you're going to focus on, the obstacle that you can't control or the opportunity that you can. And I love your word track. That's actually a tweak we've made in the elevator pitch that we're teaching at Weaver Sales Academy is, hey, 90% of the people that we talk to currently, their auto insurance just went up. We'd love the opportunity to give you a free quote. Is your address still 101 Main Street? And it works so well because that is the pain point that consumers are facing is their rates definitely went up. It's guaranteed their rates went up. Doesn't matter what company they're with. So that's an open door. If you're listening to this right now, say that on your next cold call. Hey, 90% of people I talk to, their auto rates just went up. I'd love to give you a free quote. Is your address 101 Main Street? Because we always assume the quote, baby. All right, so let's get. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I do, because I understand Sean's mindset more because that was kind of the model that we followed. Like we didn't have money to go out and buy at mass quantities, so we cold called X dates and then we got out in the community, but the community is such a longer play. So, Stephen, I'm curious, when you're going out and you're at these B&I events or you're at Rotary, how are you generating that conversation and how are you seeing immediate business? Or is it something that takes a while?
It definitely takes a while. And to your point, it definitely is the longer play. I think from anybody that might be listening to this that's looking to go that route or, how do I get more involved in networking? For me, it was for like a year, I told myself, any networking event, any organization, I'm going to show up. I want to meet the people, whatever, and then kind of figure out from there what silos really do I enjoy? What am I getting from? And that's kind of, for me, I looked at it in 3 silos: the BNI, the Rotary, and the Chamber. And the BNI is very more direct, right? Hey, I need this introduction to John Smith who can do that. And that really happens most of the time if I ask a direct ask like that at BNI. The Chamber for me is more of just the community. I bump into Mike and Mike knows I'm the insurance guy and maybe he gets that renewal we're talking about. And hey, I see Steven every month at the happy hour, so I want to give him the opportunity or whatever. And the Rotary for me it's more of a give back thing, and it allows me as a vehicle to show I'm giving back to the community and do things on a bigger scale that people in the community like to see and become that, hometown insurance guy. So to your point, it's a completely different approach, and it definitely is a long-term thing. But we built a good business so far doing it, and I enjoy those conversations and enjoy kind of, challenging myself too on continuing to think how can we be different. We got involved in some of the local schools and give like a teacher appreciation gift every month, and so trying to do these different programs to show that we're here, we're in town, we're your people, and so that's kind of the approach that we've taken.
This guy could be the mayor of the city, I'm telling you.
So out of curiosity, Stephen, how many hours a day do you spend networking with the groups that you do?
Oh, that's a great question. Average, maybe 3, I would say, but being very honest, a lot of that has not happened to the level that I'd like to because of starting the Scratch agency. So I had a lot of these relationships prior to going out on my own, which definitely helped because I've been doing a lot of the service things. Sean was saying, I'll be completely transparent. I started the agency with $5,000. That was the runway that I had. And we just like, hey, need this AMS. I'm working out of my house, getting, one policy at a time. And so with that being said, it was just me for a while until I brought on that virtual assistant. We actually just hired our first CSR, licensed CSR. So like walking through those paths. So to answer your question, a lot of that stuff has been put on the back burner, but I'm still been intentional with those 3 silos for me. Like I know I got to show up in my BNI meeting. I know I have to show up at the monthly chamber thing. I know I want to do X amount of Rotary involvement to show that I'm still here, I'm still active. So a lot of it will hopefully now uptick a little bit more because I have that support system that's coming in and that licensed CSR. But yeah, it's definitely a grind, but it's something I enjoy. Like that's what fills my cup, is being out there and doing that stuff. So.
I'm curious, if you spend 3 hours a day networking, which is a huge chunk, what are you doing to fill the gap of that short-term marketing? Because community events are long-term marketing. What does it look like to fill the gap on the short term?
You mean by just the marketing in general?
Yeah.
What? Okay, so I mean, honestly, a lot of it is just showing what I'm doing. So like, hey, we were at this great event last night, and here's who we met, and here's a picture with these other 5 local businesses, and showing all those things, and just like I found so much that there's so much power in recording the journey.
Ooh, yeah.
Like people just love like a picture of me working late at night, like, hey, I'm a year and a half in and today kicked me right in the what, and here's how it was
You
like.
can
You know
you
what I
can
mean?
say
But
that here. This is a
perfect.
safe place to say you got
That's
kicked in the
fantastic.
nuts.
Yeah, so kick me right. But like those are, if you look at like an engagement standpoint from posts and everything, people can relate to that, right? And then I feel like
Yeah.
in a sense they want to be a part of that, and they feel they maybe want to help you, and they like to see that someone's trying to pave their own path. At least that's the way that I've gotten feedback from. So yeah, I think it would just be like, like I've done a couple day in the life of an insurance agent videos, and it's been the most uncomfortable thing to like voice over and do. People love it.
Mm-hmm.
People love it. People are like, that was so cool that you did that. Like, and so I don't know, just trying to find those unique things that maybe make us a little bit different or show that we're here in the community and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And we forget this a lot too, because a lot of the work that we do happens in the dark. And then we come out and we're like, okay, this is all great. But people want to be a part of the journey. They want to peek behind the curtain and go, how did you build that? What are the struggles that you're going through? Because I think we're all, as business owners, going through a challenging time, and showing how you're navigating it, even when you are getting kicked in the, we're going to say teeth now,
Yeah,
even when you are
that's
getting
good.
kicked in the teeth. Yeah, it to show what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy to do because that's almost like Steven doing the networking, right? It's like such a long game, right? To put yourself out there and to post on social media and to make a caption and debate with yourself what you're going to post about, and it can get overwhelming. I mean, even to do a podcast, let's be honest, Steven, like there's weeks where him and I, the agency is going bananas, and both of us are just like, why did we do this again? Because things do get out of
Yeah.
control.
Yeah. Why did you decide to? How long has your Scratch Agency podcast been going?
Uh, we're on episode 90, I think.
Two
Whoa.
Great
years? Is it
job.
2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have to know why you two, in the middle of starting your Scratch agencies, decide, hey, let's start a podcast.
Yeah, it's a good story. Sean, you want this? You want me to do it?
Steven does a good job at telling him. I'll let him take
All
control of
right.
this
So
one.
So, and this, I mean, this goes from the social proof too, of just kind of putting yourself out there. I don't know who knows Louis Gazatua from Jag Insurance. They were down in Florida, but he followed me on Instagram. Never had a conversation with him, just kind of interacted, via insurance stuff. And I posted on Instagram in May of 2022 that I left my family agency. At this time, I did not post any plans of T5. I just, out of respect to my family agency, said moving on to a next chapter, announcing that soon. Lewis reached out to me and said, "Hey, I just left my family business to do this, and we've had great success. Like, I'm here if you ever need to talk to somebody." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Actually, I was crying in my closet this morning. Let's talk." But like, I jumped right on a call with him, and literally that minute I jumped on a call, and he's like, "I got to put you in touch with this guy Sean in Long Island." And I'm like, "Okay." And so he puts us in a three-way text. That morning, I'm heading to a Big I event in Syracuse. And he puts us in a text, and Sean says, "Cool, I'll connect with Steven. I'm heading to an event in Syracuse." We were both going to the same event. And so we connected. We met in Syracuse. Long story short, like we've talked about a little bit already, but starting a business, starting a scratch agency, whatever, is a very lonely place. Sean and I just kind of connected off of that. I think he had only one VA at the time, and I didn't have anybody, so we kind of just became each other's support system and started, building a great friendship around like, "Hey, have you ever run into this?" Or, "I ran into this today," or like, "Hey, I got kicked in the teeth today. Did you?" Whatever. And then Sean was like, dude, we got to do a podcast and document this. We just gotta. And I'm like, you, Courtney, to your point, I was like, you're crazy, Sean. I'm like, nope, I just started the agency. There's no way we're gonna find time for it. He just kept like, hey, what could it look like? It has been one of the best things, I'll speak for myself, that we've done. We've built a Scratch community of over 50 people on a Telegram. That thing is buzzing daily of just people helping each other. We make great relationships, and it's been very vulnerable too. I'll be honest. We've put ourselves out there of like, hey, here's where we're at, or here's what it's like to start. But the story of kind of how we got there was just like we were the right place, the right time, the right person connected us, and it's been a great thing.
For sure.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer in this too. I don't know if you guys know who Mr. Beast is on YouTube. Okay, so one of the things that when I was doing research on YouTube, because I'm obsessed with YouTube right now, and he was talking about how he had this group of guys and they would spend 12 to 18 hours a day researching on YouTube. He said, I could do this by myself, but I will leapfrog so much faster if I have these people that are also going for the same goal. If we're in a community together, now he's the biggest YouTuber on the planet, makes almost $1 billion a year. But I thought that was so fascinating because so much, especially in the insurance industry, is we go to our little holes and we go through the same struggles that everyone else is going through, but it becomes so much more painful because we don't say, hey, I'm going through the same thing. Have you already learned this lesson? Can you help me out with this? So I love that you started that as like an accountability group for you two. What did that look like in the beginning? How often were you meeting and what were your conversations like?
Prior to the podcast, I don't know how many times a day, Stephen. I lost count. Probably at least 5 times a day we'd reach out to each other. 4 a.m, 8 at night. I mean, even to this day we talk a lot. Because let's be honest, like I was from a family agency, a little different than Steven's situation, but similar in a lot of ways. So we both from the same state, we're both around the same age. We both have gone through similar situations. And it's just like, how many other people are there out there that you can connect with on that deep of a level? I feel like it's super rare. So we take advantage of that relationship, and we both, like Steven said, we share our losses and wins and what's going on in the agency. So we talk a lot for sure.
I think just to call it what it is, we both have the same chip on our shoulder. Like we've been through very similar situations and are starting agencies for very similar reasons and very similar goals. But Courtney, to your point, like we've developed a mastermind now of 8 people that we meet every other week that are in all different phases of starting up an agency or taking over an agency. But like for me, coming from the family agency, talking to competition, whether they're in Long Island or in my backyard, like you're crazy. But like it like opened up. I went to the IOA event in October, 3 months into being an agency owner, and talk about trying to drink from a fire hose, because it was like all these people are like, hey, after the 2 days of the event, I became the kid that left the family agency. So I'm like, all right, I got to regenerate a little bit of a different name for myself. But it was like everybody was trying to help. And to your point, this Scratch agency community we built, the conversations that are happening there are incredible. And it's just been kind of super cool to see where it's evolved in 2 short years.
Yeah, and it's the podcast is mainly, for me, it was mainly an accountability thing for sure. But just to be completely honest, I heard the insurance guys talk about it. The Insurance Guys podcast. I heard them talk about like the carrier opportunities they got from it, and to me that was kind of interesting as well. I'm like, if I do this, people from insurance carriers might listen to it, and maybe that helps build my credibility and reputation a little bit. I was like, I kind of like that. And I would say maybe less than 15 episodes in, to this day, I swear it was a huge part of why I got appointed with one of the regional carriers we have in New York. And the marketing rep saying, hey, I listen to your podcast and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. So that was definitely one selfish reason for it as well.
Yeah. We completely agree. From a networking standpoint, if you want to have a different conversation, if you want to have a higher level or just navigate like what you're going through and bounce ideas off of somebody, a podcast is a fantastic way to do it. But it is a job. That's why I asked. I'm like, you guys signed up for another job in the beginning of your career.
But it's so, I would agree with that, because I tell people all the time, I have learned so much over the last 2 years of doing the podcast from individuals like Sean and Steven and heavy hitters in the industry, to where it allows us to learn new ideas, new things to bring to our network, to be able to help them. And so the podcast has been fantastic for networking, for learning, definitely branding, like what you're saying, Sean. Like it is amazing. And the best part is you're able to deliver free value to people that allow them to learn it, take action, and make more money, see more results. And that's what this is all about. I think this is why we all do what we do.
Yeah, because all of us started. I mean, you hear our stories. We had 5,000. Stephen had 5,000. Sean had maybe 10,000.
Yeah.
So it's not like any of us came in and we're like, "Here's $100,000." I do have a question.
Should know.
Though.
Burn the boats, go all in, baby. Make those calls. Let's go. Smile and dial.
You guys went 2 different routes, but I have a question for you right now. Where you're at in the market? If I were to give each of you $10,000, Sean, Stephen, what would you guys spend it on?
I'd probably hire a virtual assistant first thing.
Starting
If you gave me more than 10, I'd probably hire a CSR. Yeah, I mean, for me, just the service side of it is the biggest thing, because like that's not my thing. I love being in the community and being in the coffee shops, but that's been challenging for me. Like there's the things service wise I got to do because I got to do them to build the foundation, right? So if I had a little bit more capital, it would definitely be to get support.
Okay, I love that.
Sean?
That's a tough one. Part of me would just say I would call one of these lead vendors and be like, "Hey, how many leads can I get for $10,000?" So I might start there, but I like the idea of a virtual assistant as well to help with the admin tasks, to help me free up to prospect more. That's not a bad idea either. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but I kind of like the lead idea as well.
Yeah. I'm not surprised on either one of your answers, like where you went with that.
So
you're delegating out the things you don't want to do.
I'm surprised Steven didn't say donate it to a local charity, you know?
I'd be all about that, Steven.
All right, I do have a question for both of you, though, because you both said something very similar. So my question would be, because there's no right or wrong here. So 10 grand given today, you're going towards leads, you're going towards a CSR, which I love both of those. What needs to happen for you all to be able to hire your next sales producer to be able to duplicate yourself?
For me personally, I think a lot of it has to do with showing that it can be done. And for me, the way I like to show how it can be done is by saying, "Hey, look, I did this. And I can set you up to do the same or better."
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think to your point, the thing that would be important for me from the service standpoint is to set the foundation, because I know that's just not my strength. But if I could get that foundation kind of set and then hit the ground running, none of those things would be lacking at the end. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but that's kind of where I was.
No, there's not. That's why I wanted that follow-up question, and your answer makes total sense. You all both want a structured foundation to set up your producer when you make that hire to help them be as successful as possible. And I gotta watch my language here, but I freaking love it. I love it. That's a great answer. All right. So Sean and Steven, if somebody wanted to follow you guys, connect with you, work with you, what's the best way for them to do this?
On Instagram for me, at Sean P. Fitz, that's SHAWN P. Fitz, FITZ.
Yeah, for me, I'd probably say Facebook and LinkedIn are probably the best right now. And the Scratch Agency Podcast.com. We have, you can click there to join the community. Like I said, there's like 50 people in there right now of just like Michael said, free value of just sharing wins, sharing losses, looking for support, helping people. It's been fantastic, but appreciate you guys having us on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, man. You guys,
So
fun. You
fun.
guys were fantastic. Thank you guys so much. And honestly, I love your all's transparency and vulnerability. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for what you do for the insurance industry, giving back, being thought leaders in the industry goes a long ways. And for all of those of you who are listening or watching right now on YouTube or Spotify, thank you guys so much for your support. We appreciate you. As always, time and attention are by far our most important assets. So thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Go out, make it great.